When you think so, look at it. He looks thinner. I'm not just saying this new vision because of that, but I'm just saying your beard is crisper since you've been at New Vision. Your locks is cleaner since you've been at New Vision. I just blessed. That's my son. I'm just saying. I need a countdown, Ava DuVernay. That's my Ava DuVernay right there. I need a countdown. That's my Ava. 5, 7. Come on, y'all, get up close. Praise the Lord, everybody. We are live again on both Facebook and YouTube because we believe that we are a part of something called a worship service. Worship on Sunday, but we serve throughout the course of the week. And one of the things that we are moving towards is a global village. We are moving towards a global village. Brother Ron, there's a little bit of feedback in this mic. I'm going to turn down just a little bit. And so on each third Sunday, what we do here at New Vision United Methodist Church is not only celebrate birthdays, but every third Sunday we have a conversation called the Global Village. We have a conversation called the Global Village because we believe that we are uniquely stationed not only in world history, but from a geographical perspective, that our church is in the middle of the city. And so we offer back our soul that it might have ripple effects and cause real change for real people in real time. And so some of our church members have elected to stay, but we're having a live conversation in the curation of content with some of, I believe, the most prolific and profound minds that the Queen City has to offer. And so today, our conversation is called Make It Make Sense. Being Black in Trump 2.0. Make it make sense. And today, I not only have on a nice sweater that I just got, I like my new sweater, but I also have on a t-shirt by Audre Lorde. Audre Lorde was a womanist activist scholar who also happened to be a lesbian. And one of the things she reminds me is not only a self-care radical, but most assuredly, Sister Van, she also reminds us on this t-shirt that your silence will not save you. Your silence will not save you. And so I've got two of the most outspoken critics about the current social order in our midst. Introduce yourself.
My name's Adam Clark. I'm a professor of theology at Xavier University.
And tell us what you're teaching and tell us a little bit about that center too.
Okay, well, I'm also the director of Taken On, which is a initiative for civic engagement at Xavier University. I teach courses like Black theology. I teach courses such as on African religions. I teach intro courses. And I teach a course on Jesus and Power. I also am, head of a mentorship division, but I work in the under the Office of Mission and Identity at Xavier University, which entails both faculty responsibility and administrative responsibilities.
He is a scholar of the first order. I can't wait to hear what God is going to speak to you today. Yes, sir. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm Brandon Craig. I am the newly elected current president of the Cincinnati Public School Board. In addition, I spend the days paying my bills at the University of Cincinnati in the Office of Equal Opportunity, and I've been there for like about 8 years now.
I've asked the two of you to come on. Still a little bit of feedback, Brother Ron. I've asked for you all to come in today because I don't know how we're here again. I mean, I just don't know how we made it here again. New Vision, when I first got here, had packed the house because it wasn't my idea. One of my finance manager had a dream about having a public conversation about Project 2025. And so this place was packed. And we had a real conversation about the affects of Project 2025. And yet, not only did we have the conversation where the house was packed, we then had another conversation to remind people of the affects. And yet again, after all of what we knew beforehand, folks still decided to vote. And so now we are 16, 17 months at a place of which is unprecedented in American history. And from a theological perspective and relative to our kids, you see it most profoundly. What are some of your initial thoughts? I've got some specific questions, but what are some initial thoughts that you're seeing about what it means to be Black in Trump 2.0?
Yeah, so I think I have really three initial thoughts here on that, and one is really around this idea that we did not believe it would be as it is. Right? We heard the words, we saw the messages, and we heard folks saying, yeah, but that's what they said the last time. Yeah, but there'll be people in. And what we've seen, especially now, is how much some of those things are touching the folks and their kids and their actual lives. So it is the things that people are seeing so quickly being taken away from them that they're now realizing maybe I should have rethought, and truthfully, maybe I should have voted. Because the honest difference that I think we see between this time and 4 years ago, or really now 6 years ago, was that there was a higher voter turnout in the Joe Biden election year than there was both in Hillary Clinton and in the Kamala Harris years. So if we really are talking about that change, that's a big difference. I think the second is that there are a lot more resources and needs for folks because we're coming out of the COVID era. Okay. We were living in this world where there was extra funds and there was extra things and people felt a little bit better, so they didn't think it would be so bad. And now they're feeling the hardship that they don't have those things anymore. And then the last is really, we were told if we do these things, we would all be better. Right? He said we would never get tired of winning, right? At some point we would be so frustrated that we're winning too much. And what people are still feeling is that I'm still not winning, that the world still doesn't work for me. All right. And so I do think we have this challenge of both speaking to the message to make sure folks understand and appreciate those things only come through these processes, these steps, these efforts, but to also not let folks get complacent because they've been benefiting from something and that they think that benefit won't be taken away. Because I think we look real closely at the cuts to Medicare that will affect our poorest kids and their ability to get care and treatment in the schools, that are cuts to the Department of Education that is there to make sure our children are being educated in the proper way and that they're holding them to certain standards. The more we start eating away at those things and cutting away at those things, and even things like college tuition and college grants, and programming that really benefits our universities. The more we eat away at those things, the worse and worse we will get, and the more and more people will have to own their own votes and their own decisions not to vote.
What about you, Doc?
Wow. 100 years ago, Carter G. Woodson established Negro History Week. I don't think Carter G. Woodson could have even imagined 100 years after he established Negro History Week that America would elect a convicted felon that would undo the entire infrastructure of civil rights that he fought for his entire professional career. He couldn't imagine when he was actually selecting books for achievement, like W.E.B. Du Bois's The Souls of Black Folk. Later, we get Toni Morrison, that both of those books would be banned in some states. That Black studies would be banned and defunded in some states. That the very idea of inclusion, which Negro History Week was trying to do, would be seen as a bad word. That diversity within democracy would be seen as a negative, discriminatory word. I don't think he could have even imagined that type of progress. But if we take a long view of history,
Come on now.
and we go back to the Reconstruction era, after the Reconstruction era, who gets elected president? Andrew Jackson, who undid the Freedmen's Bureau, who undid the progress that was happening in terms of land grant rights, national banks. If you look at the Civil Rights Movement, in the 1960s, 1970s, we get Richard Nixon, right? After the pushback in the late 1970s, we get Ronald Reagan. And after Obama, we get Trump. So I see all of this as historical cycles of white pushback against Black progress in the administration. So I think we have to see it in that thing. This is not the first time this has happened, that Black folks have lived under tyranny ever since we entered into the Western Hemisphere. And we have the, matter of fact, I see it so much as that we have the best resources to manage and negotiate tyranny more so than other cultural groups of the United States, right? Starting with the Black church, right? Even the Bible, the Hebrews in the Bible lived under tyranny most of the time. Either the tyrannies from foreign oppressors, whether it be Egyptian, Roman tyranny, Assyrian tyranny, right? Or under their own unjust monarchies. So the very biblical voice is a voice that cries out under tyranny. And we have prophetic voices like Reverend Matthews here, who are always trying to see what's God's word under tyranny. So in terms of trying to actually resilience in trying to weather the storm and forge a moral future, I think the Black church is best situated to actually give us a path forward, to understand that we need to have both an internal dynamic, which you talk about fasting and praying and contemplative, and an outer strategy to not lose our moral bearings, to not fight ugly by being ugly, right? To not always be reactive, but to be proactive, right? So I think that's where we're at today.
So when you hear that, and he creates that construct and that framework, and then you are with students who you said at least 80% of our students are on free and reduced lunch. You said that we make sure that 100% receive that. How does some of the things that he talks about show up in the children that you see on a regular basis?
So I think I think there's an element of our society that we have always not looked at, right? We think back to even looking at civil rights era, and we see the kids who were at the doors when the police had to be there and had to let them in, but we did not pay attention to were the kids who came in those years after, who still face some of the same treatment, who still face some of the same barriers, just not in the same light. And I think that's a lot of ways of what our kids experience is a kid who lives in a community, whether they're on reduced lunch or not, whether they are traveling through living with both parents or not, some of these kids face a lot before they ever walk into the door, and they face a lot when they leave the door.
Come on, man.
And where we struggle at times as a district is that the school can only do so much during the school day. to stop or to alleviate those things. And so what we've always tried to build within those schools themselves is a community. So we call our schools community learning centers for a reason. We want the community to be able to come into the building, use the building, become familiar with the kids, give up their time and effort. We try to work with our different partners around to make sure we're caring for certain needs. We build health centers in some of our schools because we know if a kid can't see, they can't read. You know, if a kid can't hear, they can't pay attention in class. If a kid's not properly addressing other health-related issues, they're not going to do well in their school day. But that means we're now a medical center. Now, we also know kids are going through some serious issues with their parents and with their families and life going on. So now they're depressed. Now they're going through emotional issues. So a kid who's not emotionally ready for school and not emotionally attuned to school is not going to learn. And what we've seen in time and time again is that we can hire a social worker and we can have people there. But the truth is, if you leave that school day and you go back into a community that's broken, you go back into a place where you don't have someone there looking out. I think the best thing that I say is different from when I was a kid to what a lot of these kids do now is that I had a family who loved me, but I had a village around me. Right. And I think that's where the church is that.
He smiled because I used to babysit.
I knew that was gonna come.
I wasn't going to tell
I
all
knew
the
that was gonna
business
come.
on this podcast. I was part of his village, and I'm just sitting here with tears in my eyes, Belita. I used to babysit the president of the Cincinnati School Board. Glory to God. I know church is over, but I had a hand in that. I had a hand in that.
We all knew that was coming.
Okay,
But I think that is the reality is that the role that churches play, the role that big brothers, big sisters play, the role that different organizations have played in our kids' lives over the years, we got to a point of comfort where we said, well, we don't need to play those roles the same way anymore. We had a space where we said, we don't need to be at every school event. We don't need to be throwing back to school events for our kids because you know what, they're doing fine. They got enough, and it's not there. And I think that's the struggle I've seen most from our kids is we have some really talented kids who can do some amazing things if someone invested in them. And it's so hard to invest in 36,000 kids at once as one person.
But it's interesting because I hope you all can kind of see why I brought these two, because I've got an expert theologian and an expert practitioner here in front of us. And as people of faith, I put a lot on my church to think about how to live in the tension, right? And so when you hear the statistics that come as a part of some of the things you've written and you've gone on and talked about at the American Academy of Religion, like you're seeing this degradation in real time. Like when you hear him talk about it in real time. Am I thinking, what does that say about God? Like what is that? How do we reconcile our relationship with God that it feels like things are getting worse than it's supposed to be getting better? How do I reconcile that with God?
Yeah, I think it says more about people than it says about God.
All right.
I think it's a failure. I think it's the failure. Let me say it this way. The Christian church, to me, it's the Christian church bearing false witness.
Lord have mercy.
Right?
Break that down, brother. You got to.
Yeah,
Remember, you're not just talking to us in here. You're talking to people online.
I don't know which one I can. Which one is my camera?
Both of them got your. You're pretty. They got your best side.
I'm not sure.
My mother-in-law in
I'm
heaven
confused where
is
to
so
look.
happy that Adam Clark is on my podcast. Belita, my mother-in-law thought she confused him with Harry Belafonte. She loved Adam Clark, child. She loved him. So it don't matter which side. We got both sides. Talk to us in regular church talk about bearing false witness.
Yeah, it's the church actually bearing false witness to not see the image of God in every child.
Hey,
Right?
can you say that again? Come on, say it.
Right.
Mr. Tucker, we're going to need that on the line for sure. Say that one more time.
Yeah, it's the church bearing false witness to not see the image of God in every child. The church has an eye disease. right? Has an eye disease, has an inability to see God's image in every child. So the resources, right? And it's getting even worse now because the very publicness of public education is being lost, right? There is no public. The publicness of public parks the publicness of public space is being lost. Everything's being privatized, right? That is a bearing of false witness because there is no commons anymore. It's all privatized, niche experiences. So we don't have a common consensus reality to even talk about these type of things. We used to be able to have the publicness of public pools, right? Everything's being privatized. So as market forces get deeper penetrated into the sector and everything's being privatized, that means people's experiences are being so unique and so curated that there isn't a common ground to bring us together.
And so just lean into that.
Yeah.
And so you said boys and girls clubs, churches, you mentioned potential fraternities and sororities, but the church is uniquely situated to offer that partnerships. What have you seen, before we beat up on the world a little bit more, show us some examples of partnerships, how the church can step in and address some of those situations.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we have, for instance, we have a church in Over the Rhine, Black pastor who's been there for a few years now. One of the first things he did is he said, you know what, we got a lot of young kids at a school nearby who need tutors, who need someone to just help them after school each day. So they said, how many people here can help teach math or English to first graders, second graders? That spawned into an after-school program. So the kids went there after school. They got tutoring. They were able to do their homework. They got a lot of focus time and focus energy. It wasn't a lot on the community of that church, but it was something that had a real benefit, and we were starting to see some growth in numbers. We've had churches that have provided foods, so meals in the morning, meals in the afternoon. We've seen a lot of these great things, and I won't put it all on the church though also, because I don't know that schools have been good partners in those same discussions, because if we don't hold these students accountable, hold the teachers accountable, then it really does make a church who's been putting a lot of effort in feel like, why do I continue if they don't want what I'm offering, right? So it's a two-way street that we both have to be in this game to work together. And if we're not, we're going to see what we were just talking about here, which is that at some point you can say you support the public, but you're not living in the public and not dealing with the public. And at some point the public can say, we want your help, but when you come to help, we don't really want to take the steps to let you help. So it has to be both, like both sides of the track have to be ready to do that.
Yeah, before, I'm doubling back with you before we talk to Dr. Clark. We were saying there are 8, and this is where the podcast gets specific to us. There were 8 Fortune 500 companies in the city of Cincinnati. And in conversation with the mayor, he said there's not yet an ecosystem that people feel like they can put their resources in. And so it's not as if the money is not in Cincinnati to do what needs to be done, but we have to develop ecosystems where people have some trust. How can a community partner be a good steward and get your attention and attention of the board?
So I think there's 2 things that really bridge that divide, right? And so the first thing is giving a purpose. When they're programming, when there's something that you can put dollars to specifically, that tends to be better. Where we've seen the most support from our business community is in initiatives that, we're building a strategic plan right now. We've got a lot of investment from there because they want to shape a district that will bring families back to the city, save some dollars for their own pockets of having to go out and do the hard work of bringing people back to the city. But if you have initiatives, you have programs, we can then say, okay, this program's had a lot of success. It's developed a lot. We want to invest in it greater. We can go to the business community for that. I think the second thing, to be truthful, is We need to change the landscape of the communities around our schools. It is such a difficult situation when you hear of a kid who goes to school and the minute they leave the campus, they're subject to someone being hurt. They're subject to violence in the community. They're subject to challenges that are all around them. And so when the church family is able to provide them a safe space that's beyond just the school doors, it gives another thing that says we can invest in here because we know that we won't be putting ourselves in those spaces where our folks will be challenged or our folks will have a bad name to them. And where that's seen the best, and I think this goes back to a little bit of the university end of it too. We have some partnership with some great universities in some of our schools that create spaces for the kids to be able to go throughout the day. The parent picks them up at the end of it all. It's a seamless process and it looks beautiful on a brochure. It looks great when a person at a Fortune 500 company wants to say, we gave $100,000 towards this beautiful initiative. Look how the little babies are here, right?
Yeah.
They need the visual, they need that image. And I think that's the part that sometimes the church community is able to do better than anyone else. Because the good that comes from the church looks so much better in so many ways than sometimes when I come up and say, we got 10 kids who did really well, versus when the church pulls up the 10 kids in that church service that day and the whole church family's around them and ready to go to their graduation and ready to go to everything they're doing. That puts a better image and put a better truth to the work that the church has done to help that kid get there.
That's fantastic. You were saying, just as the cameras were coming on, kind of in lieu of what he's saying, you were saying, man, Peter, you got content curation, you're building capacity in the church, and you're trying to live with the conscience. But I'm exhausted. No, I'm exhausted. And what comes to mind is that in this Trump era, there are a lot of Black pastors that said, forget being a conscientious witness in our community. And I'm going to spend more time building a better production on Sunday than actually being in the community throughout the course of the week. Because if I would exchange my time and not have the congressman or meet with the people that are feeding people, I could get an LTD monitor and do all the fancy stuff and spend our money that way. Yeah. And yet you've got pastors who are not endorsing Trump, but the fact that they're spending a disavowal of behavior in other ways means that they're really in full throttle support. What do you say to pastors who are trying to be that collective witness in lieu of being overwhelmed by the prosperity gospel?
Yeah, and I would say that's not just Trump, that's the algorithm.
Okay.
Like, we live in a spectacle society. So even if Trump wasn't there, I think the ecosystem of the spectacle, the kind of new media, encourages people to do ministry in spectacle.
Mr. Tuck, I hope you're getting these brothers is dropping some gems. I hope y'all getting this. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, in some sense, people say the medium is the message, meaning that the gospel becomes cotton candy under the light of spectacle. Some mediums might not be, like, for example, the gospel, as you know, and the seminarians may know, that even the term gospel was a way of talking about, it was a Roman term to talk about the good news of a new Roman emperor coming in, of safety and security. So when the Christians got it, they tried to talk about, well, safety and security is not through war equals security, it's through love. And they did an inverse of what the gospel actually means in that culture. The most faithful ministries are always countercultural, right? They always take a different way. They use the culture, but use the culture as a counter narrative against itself. And that's always scary and is dangerous, and you don't know how many people it's going to resonate with. But I like to remember King, he talked about the way to change the world is through the creative minority. You don't look for crowds, right? He said, I don't want someone to be, what you talked about, I want people to be thermostats, not thermometers,
Right.
meaning that the thermostat just takes the temperature. The thermometer changes the atmosphere,
My.
right? So he's like, he says, people of change are changing the atmosphere. He did this in the book Strength to Love, where he talks about being a transformed nonconformist,
Yeah.
right?
And I think to piggyback on that, I think there needs to be an honest admission on faith communities in these times that we're going to build and change a community and not build a Sunday morning congregation, right? Like that needs to be, because there's only so many hours in the day,
Right.
right? And so how do you think that's best expressed outside of Sunday? Because what I find about, you talked about the spectacle, you say that if I got my phone, the biggest thing that social media does is take my time. You ever be scrolling on your phone I'm doing it now, and I look up, it's Wednesday. I haven't realized that, I've lost 2 days scrolling. But people live under so much pressure. Like, how do we, what are some steps in this, in lieu of everything else, to gather Black people that their time might feel worth it? I mean, have you seen that practiced out in these times?
Yeah, well, we're trying to figure it out. I mean, it's a new medium. I mean, colleges, universities are trying to figure out with AI and everything. We're in a transitional moment in how to do what you're saying, how to form healthy communities that are not incentivized by market forces, right? That the benefit of the money is not driving the process. And we're really trying to do that. So how do some of the better steps, I mean, some people have gone, full low tech, where they don't even allow phones and computers into there. They just force you to interact with each other, right? There's one way, like even on spiritual retreats, right? If you have a retreat in the church, just like everybody puts their phone at the door, we want to love on each other, we want to learn from each other, that kind of thing. So some people have taken the step to try to eliminate the technology so they won't be a distraction. That's one approach. I don't know how long that's going to sustain itself. Another way is to try to get people to engage it more effectively, where you have prompts, where people are actually engaging it, but you're directing and you're kind of training the instinct. So that's another way to try to actually say, hey, since you have your phones, direct it toward this. And everybody does a comment. So those are two ways that people are doing it. I don't think there hasn't been enough data that's come out to kind of talk about which way is most effective. But, people are being improvisational with that.
And speaking about the notion of being improvisational, for me, it is almost creating these organic spaces. When I was coming up, you remember even before I was a preacher, I was pretty active in sports. So I had an active and busy life. I think about just how far down the sports athletics has gone in the public school system. And we took our grandson to a play at Walnut Hills. And the play was called Indecent. And it was a play about communism, lesbianism, socialism, all these different isms for high school students, right? And it was profound, it was captivating. After it was over, my 13-year-old grandson looks at me as soon as it was over, Sister L. He looked at me, Sister Connie, at that high school of yours called Walnut Hills. He looked at me and he said, why can't I be in plays like this? And I looked back at him. I said, because you're in the 7th grade, bruh. You're in the 7th grade. You can't do that yet, right? You're in the 7th grade. And we laugh about it, but after it was over, the young people at Walnut Hills had a call and response. They had a conversation with the audience, and they were having poignant conversations about all those things I just talked about, how do we begin to advance the ball and expose more students to weightier conversations? And how can the community, because Trump is not going to do it, right? The policies in place aren't going to do that. How can we advance the ball with our students and expose them to some other stuff?
So one of the things that I am most proud of in the Cincinnati Public School District that I will never say that I did, I just created a conversation for others to do the work, because that's what a board member is supposed to do. We have the largest high school ethics bowl competition globally, right here. The regional competition in Cincinnati, it is less than 5 years old. There is an opportunity for those students to talk about real social issues, current event topics in a real dynamic way. And I'm talking about things like water pollution, things like soil erosion, things like power plant development that I would, on a regular day don't think about at all. And I sat there and judged in the first years, and to hear our kids who are at that time in high school talking about these issues in a real in-depth way told me, and it's not just Walnut Hills in that competition, right? There was kids from West High. Now there's kids from Aiken, kids from Hughes, kids from Woodward. Woodward's kids said, we want another team this year.
All right.
So they reached out to the program itself and added another team.
Amen.
They had fun doing it. They had fun giving their voices, and their voices had a purpose. And I think one of the things I took a little bit from what you were just saying there as well is there's such an amazing opportunity to create voice in our students through a multitude of ways. One of those ways that is really critical is things like career tech, where if I'm learning how to do something and I'm learning how to use tools and learning how to be something, I put a value into myself, into that day. I think that's one of the things that sports has always done, right? A kid would willingly go to class because they want to play in that game that week. They're willing to do their work because they want to play in that game that week. And then you learn teamwork. So you learn how you connect with partners through sports. You learned how to do all those things. And that's something you can do in so many different ways for those kids who are not just in that one space. So I think there is a lot of opportunities to do that. But I really think one of the challenges is we just got to listen more. The kids are telling you. So, again, you use the example of your grandson there. But maybe the solution is not that we wait till he's in high school. Maybe the solution is, how do we produce a better opportunity for production that's more meaningful to them at the 7th and 8th grade level, right? And that's something that we as adults have to challenge ourselves to do a little bit more. Listen to what the kids are asking for, and then finding ways to say, maybe we can't do it this way, but we'll do it some way and somehow. That's the other challenge I say. I hate when we have to say just no. I think the no, it should always be a no, but, right? No, we can't do it this way, but here's something we can do.
Right. When you hear that, the notion of, I'm not pushing for a reinterpretation of the talent intent, but I am saying that we got to figure out, I think you were talking about the remnant. And what are some books that you might suggest that in these times people might want to pick up and think about?
What's the topic now? You talking about for what?
Just in general, about when we're thinking about living a life of resistance in lieu of everything that's going on in the community. If you were talking to, we're going to chop this up right here, and you're going to give us a list of 5 books that are easily able to be picked up and digested, and people feel like they're leading from a better space having read them, aside from the Bible. What books would you suggest?
Well, that's an interesting question. The books I read probably wouldn't be as helpful, but I'll stay with the theme of Black History Month. I'll say Malcolm X's autobiography of Malcolm X.
All right.
Because it's a biography of a person who goes through change, right? Like the idea of being open to change and being honest with your change and that type of thing, I think is a powerful, transformative biography. Two, I think the miseducation of the Negro,
Carter G.
right?
Woodson.
Carter G. Woodson, the miseducation of the Negro. I think that's important for people to look at, to talk about the educational system. I'll borrow from Pope Francis. Pope Francis said, "Thou shalt not kill" applies to economies that kill. And we should also say education systems that kill. Thou shalt not. So we have to have a different understanding of violence, right? And what Carter G. Wood said is it's an act of nonviolence to actually educate people properly, right? In terms of that. So I would say the miseducation of the Negro. I would also add, in terms of leadership.
Here's one. Give me some fiction books.
Okay.
Give us a couple of fiction books.
Yeah, I'm teaching a class on actually that now. I'm doing fiction. We're reading Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe, but
Things Fall Apart. Great book.
yeah, that actually is the first kind of post-colonial African novel,
Please put these books in the link.
right? Like in terms of, and it shows you how domination works, right?
Right.
Domination doesn't first come through guns, it comes through religion, right?
Can you say
Religion.
that again? That's going
Domination first doesn't come through guns or money. It comes through religion, because religion is able to structure consent first. And after you're able to kind of structure consent, you're able to control a population.
Now y'all see what my mother-in-law couldn't wait to do. Now y'all understand my mother-in-law when you hear this boy talk. No, I got 2 more books. Give me 2 more fiction books.
2 more fiction books. I would say, well, at this moment, and I'm going to go outside the African millennium, but people need to revisit 1984 dystopian novel by George Orwell.
1984, George Orwell.
Yeah, because
Please put these in the link.
Black history is going through the memory hole.
Yeah.
Right? It's going down the memory hole. There's truth policing where civil rights becomes discrimination, right? And white advancement becomes the normal, right? There's a type of inverse of the status of victim in protected classes where white males are the protected class and Black people are the preference class, right? The unmerited preference class. So the type of inversion that happens with kind of truth speak in memory holes is exactly what's happening now. And then also, there's a book called Amusing Ourselves to Death.
Amusing ourselves to death.
Yeah, it basically what it says.
Amusing ourselves to death.
What's the difference between people banning books and you never reading books?
My.
Right?
My.
You don't even have to ban them because you don't read them in the first place.
My Lord, my God.
Right? And the idea that people are so seduced by entertainment culture that you don't even need to ban the book. You can have the knowledge right on the shelf, right in your phone, right at your computer, and they still trick you with the same thing over and over. You still, what the Nation of Islam call tricknology, right? There's a way of trying to actually control a population through the entertainment medium where you amuse yourself, where you get so much sugar, sweetness, that type of thing, you're going through a death spiral.
My. So I hope you all get a sense of why I got these great minds here. He has given us an active list to consider. Now for our broadcasters who are watching and getting chopped up into parts, how do we get involved? What is the way that we get involved? I want to impact a student's life. How do I get involved? After this question, I hope we got some questions out in our viewing audience. So think of some questions. You could write them down. Our student intern will see your raised hand and give the questions to me. Isn't that wonderful? We have a student intern, y'all. Y'all see her in a minute, who has just started Seminary at Methodist Theological School of Ohio. That is a plug because I'm coming for some sponsorship money for the podcast. That is a plug because we're going to have a sponsorship for the podcast soon. And she's going to gather some questions, but how do we get involved?
So I think you get involved in 3 different levels. So on the first level, it is always, as it should be, invest in the kids that are here. Invest in the families that are here. The more that the families are taken care of, the more the rest of that society will start to build and grow, right? And when we talk about families, we're not talking about nuclear families. We're talking about the folks that you love and care for and have value in, right? That's your family. That's everybody in your network. I think the second level, which is the little bit bigger level, the truth is that for a lot of our kids, when they come to school, is one of the few times they get a consistent meal. And we can do a lot to deal with the social, emotional needs during the school day. We can do a lot to deal with whether kids are walking in with struggles with regards to learning disabilities and other things. But at the end of the day, when they go home and they're hungry, and they come back to school and they're still hungry, this is in large part why we did a lot of the free and reduced lunch throughout the district, is because we recognized some kids were not going to get those meals. And I will tell you, it was even more important on days when school is not in.
Just real quick, my wife will tell you, when school is closed, I am a mess because I know the babies aren't getting fed. And I feel I cry, I get upset because I feel like all the work that you're doing is for naught.
Yep.
Because when that school is closed, the question is, it's Sophie's Choice. You're too young to know about Sophie's Choice. But Sophie's Choice says, do we let them be out there in the cold at 6 o'clock in the morning, or do we let them go hungry all day?
And honestly, when they're home, it also means a parent may not be able to work. It means they may not get enough money that month to pay the bills. There's a lot of things that go involved. And so, I mean, I trust me, I was coming back in the snowstorm, recognized how bad it was. But when you get to day 3 and you got a parent who said, I've not been able to work all week, and so if I don't have a paycheck this week, we don't eat, we don't have the electric on, these type of things, which again, our electric bills get a lot higher, things are costing a lot more. I think the third level though, and this is the level that I think we just need to be thinking bigger on these days. What opportunities do you have within your professional world that you can touch into a district and invest into a school, invest into a future employee, build a network and a pipeline to opportunity? I say this because I think I look at a lot of places that we have really struggled with bringing them back into the church. One of those is we got a lot of folks who do a lot of really great jobs, who work in a lot of really great industries, who show up on Sunday, who give the money and the tithe, and who have leadership within their organizations, but their organizations are not investing back into the community the way they might themselves personally. So if you can turn that professional world opportunity into a connected to your church, connected into your organization and your family, it's a lot easier to invest when you have a bigger space to give opportunity to. I'm always thinking about this concept of we can give money, we can give time. The truth is, that's what they want you to do.
And you're saying above and beyond our local faith organization or civic group, how can we get involved to help you where you are with the school board? What are some things?
Yeah, and I think that's what I mean. Like, I think we need opportunities for internships that might lead to a potential job. That means working with a student where you can go through from their 7th and 8th grade all the way through college, where they might potentially think about you being their employer in the future. It's an investment. We do this in other school districts already. When you get out to the suburbs, they already have these programs set up for those students. They are telling these students who are privileged, we got a process for you so you don't have to worry about this when you get through college. So you're not thinking about that next job when you get through college. You already got your job set up. We don't do that in our public schools in the city. And that's the thing that I would love to see us really find a way to, and whether that's a faith network that uses the faith network as the basis for building this job network, this career network, this life network for the students in the district. That would be the big global scale thing that I think we could use.
You know, he sounds like the the president of the school board. But the way he talk, he sounds like a city councilman, don't he? He sound, I'm not prophesying on him, I'm just saying, he sounds like more than just what he is. Are there any questions? Have you gathered any questions? Here's a microphone coming in your direction. Before you get the microphone that's behind you, our lay leader has a question. I'm going to give you a quick profile of her. She served 2+ decades with the Cincinnati Police Department. Right. So here you got a little.
I have a question. I worked 17 years with CYC and after-school programs. Is CYC still active? Because we tried to follow those kids from, I think I started in the 4th grade and followed on up until they went into junior high school. But I don't hear a lot about CYC anymore. Aren't they still active?
So CYC still exists. Now, whether or not they're active, I think there's probably a better way of phrasing it. I don't know that they are that active in opportunities, and I think that's in large part because of funding issues within the city. Again, one of the first things that gets cut when the city's budget is low are these programs that are what they view as being lower level priorities, or in a way, programs that are not necessarily always being used to their fullest. There is discussion right now that is built around this idea of revising CYC, but using more of a public-private model to it. I don't know where it sits right now these days, but I know that it still exists, just not in probably active use. There are several programs out of the city that used to be like CYC, and they especially helped a lot of kids in the West End and some of these other places where there were not always those opportunities coming to them. So it was a great program that I participated in it myself, so.
All right, this question is for.
We got one more question before you get your question.
Oh, now, Ms. Connie, I know I asked you if you had a question. You told me no.
I love it.
Okay, so my question is, in what ways can churches and faith-based community partners or communities partner with schools to support students in finding and responsibly using their voices, especially on issues like racism, fascism, LGBTQ issues, while still respecting boundaries? Because we know that our government has put restrictions on what can be said and what can be done, but what are some of the things that we can do to help along the way?
That's a big word for him.
I'll be quick about it because I know we had a couple other questions, but I think the biggest, we as a district, our board members are very vocal. So I will say we speak out probably more than a lot of other districts around do. But I think providing support for those conversations is one big way. Honestly, I think giving image in idea and concept. I think we talked about earlier about bearing false witness. I think some ways when the church is standing with, when the church is there to support, when the church says, if you can't do, here's how we can help you do. It provides us a lot of strength in being able to say that we can then do more. And I think we struggle as a district at trying to do too much sometimes with the little resources that we have. And so the more that you all are able to push us and make us and hold us accountable, because honestly, I think, too often the board members come to churches on election years and then you never see us again. So I will say this right out, hold me accountable to that, bring me back in anytime you want me to be here, I will be here. But the truth is, the biggest thing that we need from folks right now is to support our kids, because the ways to support our kids are ways that make the district stronger right now.
Just to follow up on that, because I know you mentioned being at Walnut Hills and seeing the production of that play, which kind of speaks out of bounds to what legally they probably should be doing. And it exposes the kids to a lot of things. And so I guess just wondering how, and this is a question back to the church, like, how can we be more supportive? Because kids are walking out, speaking out, but yet they're unprotected. And so to go back into school and say, we now have to give you a detention or a suspension for some of these activities. How can we as, a collective group here be a little bit more vocal and present for those students to protect them more? Because they want to say stuff. They want to do stuff. It's just.
Yeah. I'm going to give this to Adam because he's got a lot more. He's much more well-versed relative to it being historically true. But I would think that one of the things that we have to help our students deal with is the very notion that things that were illegal are not always moral, right? And so there were some principal things that were legal that were immoral, that from the civil rights era to the Black Panthers to even now. I think that we have to build, first here at New Vision, our capacity to be present to students. So if someone gets a detention for an unjust reason, or if someone gets kicked out of school, what is our collective witness relative to how we stand beside those young people? I was telling someone, as you get older, sin is not just about temptation, sin is about consequences. So we want to help young people build the capacity to stand behind their principle and help them deal with some consequences. And you would say, historically, churches have stood behind people who were courageous, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In some sense.
Yeah.
So,
Go ahead.
no, I wasn't sure. Is the question about how students, it's how to protect students from?
Yes, same, yeah.
Yeah, I would just say trying to develop cultures of belonging, right? Where people actually feel like they belong. There are certain studies that talk about how when you build attractive environments, this is actually what people who are drug dependent, they say it's better to build attractive environments where they can actually evolve to a point where they don't feel that the drugs actually satisfy a deficit within them.
That's right.
Right? Do strength-based models instead of deficit-based models to deal with people. So deal with people from their strengths and not from their deficits. That might be the best way. Yeah.
That's awesome. I love y'all. Let's hear from the questions, sis.
All right, this one's for President Craig. That's what I'm gonna call you from now on, President Craig. Can you explain your idea about providing a safe environment for youth before transitioning home? Like, what would be the ideal activities for them?
I mean, I think, again, I have to go look up the name of the church again, but their idea of providing a space where, especially for younger kids, more so than the older, but we do need to provide a safe space for older kids, the younger kids having a space where they could go to after school and study, and mentorship programs. It doesn't have to be an everyday thing. It could be a once a week, you create a tutoring lab, or these type of programs that really allow folks to kind of work with a kid, and then truthfully, once you work with a kid, you are invested. So now you care about where that kid goes. So I mean, I think those types of things are the after school type work that I was describing.
It's fantastic.
See,
Okay,
they've been playing with me.
He's got to follow up. If you're worried about walking, you wait till you get into this church called New Vision. I got some walking for you. I'm just, go for it.
Thank you. I wanted to make a comment for Adam. I was really struck by the comment you made about the church. I was looking at something with the Prime Minister of Guinea-Bissau, and when Trump took away their funding for food, she said, "Good riddance." And what was behind that was by the fact that she thought some of the missionaries intentionally undermined her authority and leadership in the country. So it was a time when you mentioned the comment that sometimes we can be that negative. I mean, we're running another agenda. It's not the Christ agenda, but within the words of Christ it is. So I really appreciate that comment and bringing that to our, that we could possibly do that negative thing. Did you have any further comments you wanted to make about that?
Yeah. I would say, I would just use Howard Thurman's distinction between the religion of Jesus and the religion about Jesus. And most of those missionary type things in Africa are the religion about Jesus, meaning what humans have said about Jesus, not what Jesus experienced from God. Right? And
Can you say that again, please, sir?
I said, Howard Thurman made a distinction in his book called Jesus and the Disinherited, where he was challenged, this is in the 1930s, right? At the height of lynching, at the almost solid segregation in the South, right, where he went to India to visit Mahatma Gandhi, right? And on that visit to Mahatma Gandhi, he was giving lectures around India. And a professor from a law college came up to him. He said, look, you're here representing the weight of your civilization. I hear back home, your people are being lynched. Your people got to the America on this good ship named Jesus. He says, Christianity has been a hypocrisy in your country. And he says, sir, you sound like an intelligent man. So what are you doing here telling me about Christianity? I think you're a traitor to all the darker skinned people of the world. And what do you have to say about that? And he sat there and he paused. And he said the next thing was a 4-hour conversation. And he was working out what his relationship with Jesus was. And he said, there's a difference between the religion of Jesus and the religion about Jesus. And he said the religion about Jesus is the church, the Constantinian church, how they've been used to justify slavery, colonialism, apartheid, atrocity. The religion of Jesus is how Jesus experienced God. And the reason why I don't give up on Jesus, because I want a God experience similar to Jesus. Jesus is subject of my faith, not object of my worship. And he started to enter into Christianity that way. Yeah, so I think that needs to be the way to try to introduce Christianity in Africa, to not have it, to divorce it from white supremacy, right? And to enter in through the subject experience and not just as an object.
Do you have another question?
This one is for Dr. Clark. It says, given today's political climate, how can Black women protect our peace, pursue leadership, and build power in our careers and communities without feeling responsible for fixing structural inequities we did not design?
That's Ellen's question, I'm sure.
It is not my question. It's my wife's question, but it is not mine.
That feels like a seminary question. That feels like a
I
seminary
came from
question.
Mrs. Wright Pierce this way, not me.
Go ahead.
You know, well, most womanists start with the value of self-love, right? Like in terms of, the Bible talks about love your neighbor as yourself, right? There's an assumption that self-love's there, but when you're an oppressed people and you've been taught to hate yourself or to loathe yourself, right? You have to start with this idea that the idea of sinfulness is not excessive pride, as when the traditional Christian tradition talks about. It's self-negation and self-denial. So, excuse me, Black women have tried to reinterpret that to talk about the developing fully healthy selves. And there's been a way of trying to look at issues of Black female agency through the works of Alice Walker, the works of Toni Morrison, and trying to extract models of Black womanhood that are not based on sacrifice and subservience, but on a love that is deeply affirming to Black woman's mind and body, right? So that womanist practice has been about trying to model the healing ministry of Jesus, right? While also affirming a deep understanding of Black women's health and bodily depictions in the context of the United States. So I would say that the first idea of leadership is, number one, connecting oneself to the history of Black women, right? Black women have a distinctive type of history in the United States. Many times when we talk about Black history, we talk about it from a male-centered perspective. But we don't consider, because women have been devoiced throughout history, right? They haven't been the ones that, we might learn about Crispus Attucks, but we don't learn about Phyllis Wheatley, right? We might learn about Martin King, but we don't learn about Fannie Lou Hamer. We might learn about James Baldwin, but we don't talk about Sonia Sanchez and that kind of thing. So to kind of learn Black women's history and the kind of certain types of struggles and embodiment, and Black women have been key. The even term womanism is really talking about wholeness for the entire community. That salvation isn't some type of spiritual guide. It's a way of trying to talk about how do we become whole as a people. And wholeness for them includes both genders. It's not just a separative one like some of the feminist ones. So I think love and wholeness are the key contributions of womanism that should be something that the entire Black community can use as resources to rework our future in the United States. Oh, thank you.
We're coming to a close now. I wanted to read this quote from the president of Rwanda. President of Rwanda says, "I have closed over 6,000 churches and mosques in my country. I am now demanding a theological degree from every religious leader in the country of Rwanda. Wow. Stop playing with people's faith and making it a business." I feel that's a profound statement, and in lieu of our current reality, how would you speak to that from where you stand and where you stand if we're going to make it make sense? Think about that and give me 90 seconds.
You know, I think the thing we talked so much about today, and I think it's the thing that is going to be the story as we go forward and how we think about the future of our culture, of our people, of our city, to be quite honest, is about, do we value each other or do we value the thing that each other brings? If we value the thing that each other brings, then we're only talking about bringing back the limited portion that is useful to us. That means we keep people in our lives for a specific purpose. We don't value the person. So when the person's hurting, we're not thinking about that. We're thinking about whether or not they can give what they've always given to us. We're in a society right now where we're hurting. And if we're honestly going to say we value each other and we value the people around us and we value the essence of who that person is, we have to value that person when they're good and when they're hurt. And it's a lesson, I think sometimes I was taking especially a good thought around that idea of valuing Black women, because I think one of the things we've always done is we value the highest level of achievement, and mid-level achievement we don't care about. We gotta value it all. So if we're valuing each other, if we're showing love to each other, we will be in a better place and we'll be able to better be connected to each other through the good and the troubled times.
Reverend, you just re-preached the preacher's sermon. You wasn't even here for it, but you just re-preached the pastor's sermon. Take us home, sir.
Oh, well, I think what the president of Rwanda is really talking about is credentialing, right? Like he's saying that, look, we want credentialed preachers and not just anybody who says they're a preacher to be in our society, right? And that's a good start, and that's a way of trying to hold accountability. I don't think that's enough, right? Because we got credentialed people, preachers here, and we still have a lot of abuse, right? So that's not going to be enough. I think what needs to happen all over the African world is credentialing, yes, but we need a cultural renaissance, right? We need to actually go back to our African culture, which you do here with the Afro-Methodist type of orientation, and really use our culture not just as a reference, but as a resource for re-understanding our faith, right? Like we have to understand, let's say Martin Luther King, not just as a great leader, but actually Afrofuturist, right? The whole tradition of King is looking at the kingdom of God as a multiracial community. He was an Afrofuturist and trying to get America, right, to create a better, to actually shape a better future for Black Americans and the rest of America, right? So he took the gospel and the future predictions and the future kind of orientation, and then read the type of modern sensibility of race and saw a multiracial community, a multiracial democracy, which is possible. And now that's being deeply threatened right here. So I think in terms of what he's doing, it's a good start, but also we have to look toward the eschaton, toward the future. And I think King and the Black social gospel movement is, and also what you're doing here at New Vision, are good sensibility, a good pathway to try to build the beloved community that we all deserve to be in.
Let's give them a round of applause. So just so each of you know, I'll send a note out to you. We're hosting an interfaith dialogue with our Congressman, Greg Landsman here, for you two to know, for you all who are watching online, this coming Tuesday at 9:30 a.m. It'll be a breakfast meeting here at 9:30. Later on that day at 2 o'clock, we're having a conversation about the impacts and influence on ICE, both here and in Hamilton County. We call this conversation a global village because we believe, as what you've just said, sir, and what you just lead in your life every day, that irregardless if you're a member of our church, we believe that we've been situated geographically and theologically in the middle of this city for a reason. That Catholics and Buddhists and Muslims and persons from all walk of life will not only know more about Christ, but also know about their community. And so for you all helping us kick this conversation off 2026, I am forever humbled. Let us lead it to a word of prayer. God, we just thank you for this day. We thank you for the beautiful and sterling witness of these two, your sons and our brothers. Pray now that you would continue to consecrate them as they make available not only their anointing from their heart, but their actions through their steps. Order their steps according to your word as we walk with them for the rising of a new day. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, we pray. Amen.
Amen.
God bless you both. We'll see y'all next time.
All right.
Come shake these people's hands. They're excellent. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Y'all got Sylvia asking questions. Lord have mercy.